Hey there! Today is our second ever free day, and I figured I should continue the conversation on identities. If you missed the first one, you can watch it by clicking on this annotation. The TLDR version is that I listed all sorts of identities. The relevant ones today are the fact that I am queer, trans, non-binary, pansexual, panromantic, agender, plus dysphoric. I'm going to elaborate on these. Let's start with queer. Queer is a slur that has been used to dehumanize, abuse, and murder the LGBT community. So if you're straight, cis, and not intersex, you should never use it. Never. It's not your word. Queer has a history of oppression, but it also has a glorious history of overcoming that oppression. People reclaim it as a symbol that those who abuse us do not have the final say. I overcome what I face. Queer wraps up the struggles and the importance of a community of struggles that the LGBT community faces. Next is trans and non-binary. Trans, or transgender, just means that your gender is not 100% what the gender you are assigned at birth is. All non-binary people are trans by default, but not all of us use the label. Non-binary is slightly more complicated. There's this idea that permeates all of our culture called the gender binary. It's a false construct that basically says people can be sorted into male and female based on their sex characteristics, and man and woman based on their gender. This sentiment isn't true, and it's harmful. An intersex person has sex characteristics that don't all match a binary gender's layout, and a non-binary person has a gender that is neither 100% male nor 100% female. Part of the problem with the gender binary is that when people try to talk about binary trans people, they insist on a separation between sex and gender. But that's another fallacy. Up next we have pansexual and panromantic. Pan is a Greek suffix meaning all. Pansexuality is the sexual attraction either to all genders or without a gender bias. It does not, however, mean sexual attraction to every person on the planet. That's omnisexual and, while valid, frankly sounds exhausting. A lot of people say that pansexual is just the politically correct version of bisexual, and that might be a helpful starting point, but I encourage you to do some more research on the differences. A lot of it boils down to personal preference. I included both pansexual and panromantic to point out that sexual attraction does not equal romantic attraction, and a romantic relationship does not necessarily mean a sexual relationship. They are two separate things, though they frequently overlap. They don't have to. Last in terms of labels is agender. This harkens back to the non-binary thing. I said that I'm neither 100% male nor 100% female. Specifically, I am agender. I don't have a gender. At all. I obviously still have secondary sex characteristics, but that doesn't mean I have a sex. I don't know why or how or whatever, but I do know that gender just doesn't exist in me, just like a second kidney doesn't exist in me. So that's a cool thing. Sorry, that's a spoiler for next Wednesday. The final term I mention is that I have gender dysphoria. There's no real good way to describe gender dysphoria other than to say it's a sense of gender wrongness. It's a lot like culture shock. You're abandoned in a country filled with strangers who speak a language you don't recognize, with customs you haven't seen before, and danger lurking everywhere for an unexpected tourist. It manifests for different trans people in different ways. And for me, it has a lot to do with filling out forms where I have to call myself a woman, girl, or female. With my long hair, with using the women's bathroom, and the men's bathroom is dangerous for me, and with my period. I do this nasty thing sometimes when the dysphoria gets too intense called disassociate, which I'll talk more about on Monday. And if I don't disassociate, then I often feel nauseated and just really, really sick for hours afterwards. So that's a bit more about me. If you found any of this information interesting, hit that like button. Want to share your own thoughts about these concepts, or maybe your own identities? Leave a comment. And don't forget to subscribe to make sure that you see the other 2 parts of this series. Finally, keep on using the hashtags #JamSession and #AskAzaria to get your questions in for our first ever Just Asking Monday, which will be on the 28th. I hope you have a great day.